Okay, welcome everyone. First off, this is a capital planning committee meeting. First, I'd like to welcome Dan Pika to the committee. So he's our newest rep for the finance committee. That's good. Now we have a full committee. So Dan works at South Shore Bank. We work together at the bank. He's been in banking for a number of years. Hopefully brings some good financial wisdom to the committee, to the finance committee. So excited to have you on board.
Thank you.
And with that, tonight we have the police department presenting their capital projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I've brought along Deputy Chief Paul O'Brien, and then also with me I have Michael Jenkins, Sergeant Michael Jenkins from the Police Department, and our IT Director, Ryan McGonigal.
Right.
When we get into our FY20 capital projects, there's several joint IT capital police projects, so I want to make sure we had the, any questions that I had the resources available for you. I wanted to start off by an update on the FY19 capital projects that I had submitted and had approved at town meeting last year. The first one that I'm going to talk about was our cruisers. For those that were here, when I came on in July of 2016, my first budget year, I put together a 4-year cruiser plan for the group. And in your packet, you'll see that I included what I actually submitted in that first year. And as the check marks indicate, we're right on target with what we said we were going to do back then in 2017 in each of the fiscal years, FY18 and 19. So last year, we did take 2 cruisers out of the fleet and replace those with our new cruisers 202 and 208. In the packet that I gave you, you can see a layout of all of our cruisers. And I'll go to that real quickly. You can see that we have unmarked and marked cruisers. The unmarked cruisers, the deputy chief and I, the detectives, and when we say detectives, you'll see there's 4 detective vehicles. 3 of those were, 2 of those were seizures from drug cases, so they were never purchased, just drug cases that we've actually did over the years. You'll see they're 2001 and 2003 vehicles, but they work well for the detectives still. The 2005 vehicle is a shared web task force vehicle. It was purchased jointly by the 3 Bridgewaters, Whitman, and Bridgewater State University. And then the 212 unit, the 2015, that is a unit that we purchased within the last year or so, in the last fiscal year. It replaced our existing 212, which had numerous problems. Again, that was all done through budget, no capital items. So this year, we brought in, this past fiscal year, 202 and 208. And as you see in my 4-year cruiser plan, this year I'll be looking for another cruiser, and we can get to that when we get to the FY20. But I just want to see that we are right on target for FY19 and that 4-year cruiser plan. Our only other project was the standalone police station garage. And obviously, it has not started. Quite a bit of work has gone into this project. The deputy chief, being the lead person on it. We've run into numerous issues with this project. One of them being the location behind the police station. And let me go through the steps that we've taken. So over the summer, we met with the building inspector, plumbing inspector, electrical inspector, John Haynes and Brian Kiley, the fire chief, our procurement officer. We had $150,000 approved at town meeting with $35,000 commitment from EB-CAM so that they could warehouse their vehicle. So as we started putting together the building specs for this project, we realized that we had to do that, we had to take that task on ourselves. So the deputy chief actually, spent many hours working with other, departments that have done similar projects and reaching out to vendors to come up with, specs that we could work with Phyllis in accounting to do a procurement. As that process, undertook its way, we had to contract with Silver Engineering to do a site assessment of that land out back. Based off of their assessment, there was much more site work than we had intended. The sloping had to be cut down drastically. A retaining wall would have to be put in. So the cost of the project already started to escalate as we looked at the site work. There wasn't going to be any, or there's not going to be any plumbing on this, but there was limited electrical. So we did meet with those inspectors, and those weren't going to be obstacles in that location out back. But the site work definitely became an obstacle after having the.
Why is that? I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of weight. I mean, you have buildings there now, right?
Well, the 3 buildings there are 2 sheds, for lack of a better word, and then a.
So is it really the
One
slab,
side,
maybe?
One side of the slab would have to be 12 inches lower than the other.
Oh,
So it had to be
okay. Oh,
scaled
okay.
down, because you go from, I believe it's almost a 6-foot drop as you
Okay.
start from the left.
It's pretty
and
long,
come
right?
across the right, and then when you get to the right edge, you have the stairs that lead down to the school.
Yeah.
So you would have to put in some type of retention piece there
Yeah.
to make sure, for not only for, the ground purposes, but also for, drainage purposes too. So and that was working with, the DPW and the engineers, sitting down with Brian Kiley and John Haynes.
Right.
Because they did commit to demolishing those 3 existing infrastructures for us, getting those out of there, and then doing some limited site work.
Yeah.
And then, again, limited being there, not much, that where we got into that escalation. So we continue to look at this project, even with the engineer, and from meeting with John Haynes and Brian Kiley, they had originally suggested the lower parking lot out front here, and I believe we may have talked about it in some of these meetings.
Right.
And from talking to John, he's actually marked out the lot out there. He believes that the site work DPW can handle anything that needs to be done, because the site is already compacted. There would not have to be any fill brought in to put the structure on it, and it's already been sitting there for approximately 20 years. So the other problem we ran into is the price of steel has gone up about 40%, over the past year. The town of Middleborough is building the exact same standalone garage, 60 by 40 in Middleborough. Now, they built a brand-new police station, but they had an add-on of this standalone garage. I've been in touch with the Middleborough chief, using their project as a guideline for us, including some of the specs and things, that I talked about earlier. Their estimated cost for that 60 by 40 with the steel metal went up to $320,000. Keep in mind, state prevailing wage law is really the biggest, piece to that. And the deputy chief found that out in putting together these specs. It really is a structure that in the private world would probably cost about $80,000. For the town of Middleborough, they priced it out $320,000. They then took those, the engineered plans, and had them priced out as a wooden structure, and it was still to the tune of about $225,000. So what Middleborough did is they reached out to Bristol Plymouth, to their construction group that does projects over in Bristol Plymouth, the vocational school. They now actually have the structure built, it's weather tight right now, the vocational students are doing it, and it's gonna cost them, materials only, to about $90,000 is
Wood?
what the estimated cost.
They're doing wood?
They're doing a wood structure. So at a minimum, the site needs to change. I believe, from talking, relying on, John Haynes and Brian's their professional opinion, and from looking what the engineer had told us, that it would need to move to a new location, and it would have to be a wooden structure. I engaged the Southeast Vocational School, and we met with their team last week, and showed them everything that Middleborough was doing down that way, and they are, going through their channels to see if it would get approved to be a project. Again, this is an idea, because at this point, with the space metal building, it's not gonna happen. We don't have the funds for it. We have $185,000, and we know we can't do that under the state prevailing wage law and what the situation is with steel now. So we're looking at that as an alternate plan to present back, to get this thing off the ground. Obviously, with the students doing it, it's a different timeline. It would have to be a different start date. It would, certainly, create some challenges, but it's something that they're interested in doing. But before I take next steps, I wanted to run through, certainly with your committee, and then, through the proper channels within the town to see if it's a viable option. There's one other option that John Haynes we've reached out to other building companies that do prefab buildings. But again, the deputy chief had already gone through those price, and it's still gonna be, well over the price that, we're budgeted for. So it's not for lack of desire, effort, or time, but it's certainly some challenges that are presented. George had told me that, and I've been keeping George up to speed on this. George told me he needed to know by March if we were gonna have to, pull out of that funding source. So we're really in a tight timeline that I'm trying to see what these alternate plans, if they're viable.
Well, how come you said on the lower lot here, out front, it would have to be wood? Why?
It would not have to be wood. Oh, no, but it can't afford it, because
So there's other options of, what I mean, there is like a post and, without a foundation, they're called the Morton Building.
We've talked to Morton Buildings. So,
And there's other companies like that, there are like a prefab,
With the prevailing
Without-
wage, the best Morton could come in was at $250,000.
okay,
the prevailing wage law really, makes this project almost,
because realistically, the steel is only on 8%, so I don't know how they're coming up with such a crazy,
Talking to steel
Yeah.
building manufacturers, they could
I
do-
understand the prevailing wage is an
If
issue,
we were
but,
doing it at a private property, it'd be about $80,000 to
Yeah.
$100,000.
right, no, I know it is.
So
and that's a challenge.
that's
You know,
what we're
the,
stuck with.
the other challenge too is, have had, built in the cost of, the specs piece, that puts the price of this about 20% or more. And again, that's working with other towns, other departments, how they had done it. We tried to follow, West Bridgewater had done similar projects that they were able to do, but again, the challenge right now is, it really comes down to that, the size of that structure to do it. Even if we were to do it as a wood structure, we're still gonna have to pay state prevailing wages.
Right, well, a wood structure would be actually more money if you didn't have that access to free labor. Because now you're gonna have controlled construction.
Absolutely.
So it's a bigger ballgame.
Which is why Middleborough decided to go the route. I mean, they literally have, it's up and, it's professional. It's just, they started mid-September. They're obviously in January and just got, not just got, but they've been weather tight. They're doing the siding now. So their timeline's gonna probably take a 6-month turnaround. And from talking with the Southeast team, we met with their director and then the two, teachers that oversee the program, the licensed contractors. They said, I don't wanna give you a timeline, but within the calendar year, they know they believe they could get it done or think they could get it done along the same timeline as Middleborough.
Doesn't sound like a bad idea to me.
I know, I like it. Yeah.
I haven't talked to town council yet on, I'm meeting with Jamie Kenny, Attorney Kenny tomorrow. I've got a to-do list, and this is one of the items I wanna run through. Obviously, one of my concerns right away is liability, coverage. I believe those processes are in place. There would be a couple of caveats that we'd have to address from talking to the director when we met last week. But again, there's a possibility, to make this happen in that regard.
Would that garage be used for the vehicles as well? Or is it basically just dry storage?
It's gonna be a combination, so obviously, we have the cable piece on this with the funding, so there's storage for that. But, we have, our ATVs, we've got our 2 motorcycle units, we've got our radar units. Right now, they're,
The only reason why I ask is there's, two different, if it's considered dry storage, it's considered warehouse, then you wouldn't need like the floor drains.
that's not including that.
Right.
We already
and-
went through
so-
that.
Right,
We asked
and
if
once
we
you
would
bring
need that,
vehicles
see
in,
What we're using it for, they said, no, we're not storing.
you're not
vehicles."
storing, so you're gonna use it as storage, then you don't have to do that, I would just keep making.
Yep, no, that's why we met with the building inspector, plumbing inspector, we went through all that, and at one point, there was talk about, you've gotta do the tank, the
Yeah.
tight tank,
Yeah.
but he said with our purposes, it would not need that.
Good.
That's great, yeah.
And like I said, and I know we're in February, but, I can tell you, the deputy chief spent, his packet is like this right now for the specs, and, I was taken aback when I saw, even someone that sweeps, screws off the floor is getting paid $37 an hour.
Right.
So when it comes, I'm just curious, how you coming up with a number though, using wood? So have they given you like a basic, this is material?
Based off the design from Middleborough, the cost estimate.
So they gave you a cost of what their materials were?
Yeah.
And right now, that's, the Middleborough project looks like it's gonna come in just under 100,000. Keeping in mind, they had to do the site work.
No, I
and they had to
understand,
get the-
I can't imagine why John couldn't do what. they
John
need to
said
do.
down there, he's more than comfortable, he assured me down there, back here, and that's when we had the first meetings after town meeting, he says, there's a lot more here to it. We brought in Silver Engineering and discovered that
sounds
there's
good to
gonna be
me.
more challenges.
I like that you're trying to be cost effective.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, continue, I have to let George know financing wise within the next couple of weeks, so right now, the engineer that did the Middleborough project is now gonna be updating because in Middleborough, they're actually using one bay for a different purpose, so we've just gotta make a couple of tweaks, remove a window with that, and then get those plans out to Southeast, and they're going through their channels, right, as we speak.
So do we have to re-vote on that?
No.
Or we can just,
I mean, the funding's still there. What's the requirement for, how long can it stay in the account?
There's no time limit,
think
so
there
we
was,
could
right.
actually, and that's why I had asked George initially, he
Right.
just needs to know for the financing purposes, is this
Oh,
project
okay.
going forward?
Oh, so we can bond it, right,
Yeah,
right,
so
right.
right now, that's why George wants me to get back to him within
Okay.
the next couple of weeks here, so that's why we're working
I would
aggressively.
keep it going forward, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let me ask you though, so now, let's say the building does come over here, is that gonna impact, are we changing it? Is the senior building still staying there?
I'm not involved in anything to do with,
It
I
doesn't
don't know.
affect that at all.
Doesn't affect.
Doesn't affect that at all.
Right, and then, and
And-
the second question is, so we have two existing buildings up back that we're gonna come down, are they still coming down?
Yes,
Or-
yes. And what we actually talked about is, because we will lose some parking, what we talked about is still having those infrastructure come down, and then maybe we can get
Gain the
gain
space over
additional
there.
spaces out in the back now for employee parking, because right now, everything gets parked out there, that would actually be
Sounds like it
more.
works.
Yeah, so we're, like I said, we're aggressively moving forward to the best of our ability to get this done.
Excellent.
All right, so that's FY '19, so FY '20. And, you each have all the capital projects?
We should.
What I was gonna do is I was gonna start with the largest project is the police smart cruiser, for 46,124.
Sure. Get some-
Yeah, do I have a? Wow. This all you guys?
Well, there's a lot of descriptive, detail, information there. I'd rather give you more information than not enough.
Yeah,
With-
the front here.
Yeah, it should be the first one I did when I
This is
scanned
fire
the first
department right there.
pieces there. So in your packet, you do have the cruiser, four-year plan. So this year, what we are looking to do is take, cruiser 209 out of the fleet. It's over 111,000 miles. It's only used by Officer Eldridge for truck enforcement. And it's at the point now, maintenance cost to date, we put about $7,000 into it. Sergeant Jenkins today just told me that the laptop is so outdated, and I told him that we're not gonna replace it. It's to the point where Dick Eldridge has really stretched this thing to, we've gotten every bit of mileage out of it as we can. So as I said in my capital plan 2 years ago, for the cruisers, we're looking to take out 209 out of the fleet. 207, which has actually more mileage, but actually in better shape.
That's the one with the new engine.
Yeah, we had to replace the engine, that's why it's got 11, almost 12,000 in maintenance cost to date. That would then move down and replace 209 as the truck enforcement officer vehicle, and then we would move the new cruiser into fleet, and then we would move cruiser 204 with the highest mileage down to the school resource officer, who uses that on a daily basis. So it doesn't get a lot of mileage on it daily. As you can see, and I broke it down this year for you, unmarked versus marked. I mean, you can see that, we're not buying brand-new vehicles as the unmarked. So the deputy chief and I have 2013s, and the detective vehicle is is a 2015. So we're trying to be, mindful of that cost-wise. Again, we definitely respond and quite a bit to things, but, so for the unmarked, the mileage is high. So I did break it down, so the cruisers, the marked cruisers, you see, the average miles right now is 65,000. And, we average somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000 miles per year. And I know at times we've talked about, Chief, you have so many cruisers. Well, right now, on each line, there's at least four officers. On the day shift, there can be up to six or seven officers, depending on the volume of that day, the school resource officer, the court prosecuting officer, and then the cars on the road. So we have to have those cars, and what we try to do is rotate at least one car out of the regular rotation, because I don't think the public realizes, these things run 24/7. And we try to run them 16 hours a day and give it a little bit of relief, but we really don't have that, ability to keep them, so they do accrue those miles. I can share with you, since 2016, when I took over, one of the first things I did, I met with John Haynes, and we have the DPW mechanic doing all the work for our cruisers. The deputy chief oversaw that and has overseen that project for the last 2.5 years. And, we estimate that's probably saved us last year in labor costs, probably $20,000 to $25,000 at an estimate of, say, $75 an hour. We got 318 man-hours from the mechanic. So it's really been it was a great move from day one that we did, and it's really saved us. And, the deputy chief, Sergeant Patterson, have really taken that on. But it's really, to the tip of the hat to Mike Janess and his partner down there at the DPW. We purchased bulk oil together, so all the oil changed together. Prior years, what we would do is, if we had a cruiser need a problem, it would go to one of the three different vendors in town.
Right.
And we're paying higher rates. Oil change would be a subcontractor come in, and we're paying more money, so we've cut our costs down there. So this capital request would be to replace 209, get this vehicle into the fleet, and then move 207 down. Any questions on that one?
What happens to 209?
Auctioned off, and then it'll go to a cruiser account that we have for the auctions. So the next one I will turn to is our second largest, or the second project, and that is going to be and I'll call it the IT server room renovation. And it's detailed description here, it should be the second one, it says Police Department Server Room. I have Ryan McGonigal here, and I definitely want to have him hit on some key points with Sergeant Jenkins maybe as well, but if you go to the pictures in the handout I gave you just when we sat down, there was 7 pictures down, of our downstairs room. The top left one is our server room that we call 911. So the 911 answering machines for the 911 state system, their server is that tall black unit. That is their server. General Dynamics maintains it, owns it. They come there and work. As you might be able to tell, there is no door on there because it gets so hot in there, we had to remove the door from that room years ago. So we have our 911 system, and I didn't take pictures behind there, but it's basically a spider web of cabling that is just kind of accrued over the years in that room that does get up to probably 80 degrees. So those first 2 pictures in the top left, and then second one in, that's the server room. The top pictures on the 3rd and 4th to the right side of the page is, as you're looking at it, is all of the town hall servers and the police department servers that are located in that blue and black bin. And the desk right there is where we use our IMC, our mobile dispatching system servers, also located at that table. Those are all located in a room that, again, we don't lock that door because it gets up to 80+ degrees in there. That leads you into the juvenile cell block. So at the end of that hall is the cell where we put our juveniles, we put our females, and where the matron's actually supposed to sit in that area where our servers are. But as you can see, it's not secure. We actually walk prisoners past our town hall and police department servers. They're not in a climate-controlled environment. It's been an issue. When Ryan McGonigal came in, I basically talked and asked him to do an assessment, and I'll kind of ask him to talk if you have a couple, want to just add a couple words, Ryan.
Thanks, Scott. So when I came on in November, meeting with Scott, that was actually one of the first things I noticed. Thank you. I took a look I did a server assessment for the room, and as soon as I walked in the room, I noticed it was about 80 degrees. This was beginning of November, so I don't have the experience of what the actual temperature is in the middle of August. I'm guessing it's probably hot. We're moving forward as a town of adding more and more computer-based devices. Mm-hmm. Our server room is just going to get bigger and bigger, and as a result, this area is just going to get hotter and hotter. Right. And as Scott has already touched on, this area isn't secure. We're walking people past it all day. So personally, I think this is a really good project in order to, one, protect our infrastructure. The cost of doing this project versus if we were to lose our servers is a large difference. A basic server upgrade is roughly going to cost you anywhere from $100,000 to $130,000, and that wouldn't include our cost of data recovery if we lost things like our backups.
The other piece that this does is, it gives us a location that's secure. The ability for us to consolidate firewalls will give us more room. One of the issues that we're dealing with, the connectivity issues, it would enable us to bring fiber into that room as well. It's a project that he's working on separate outside of Capital. And again, it allows us to consolidate, have everything in one room.
Is there another place in town hall we can put these servers?
Not really. It would require a construction project to one, make it secure, and two, it would have to temperature control it.
I thought you have some issues with that, don't you, down there with that?
So
HVAC?
part of this project is to put in climate control.
Okay.
We've had one of the vendors that came in was actually talking about fire protection, so we addressed, so this project would address all those needs. One of the concerns I would have is with my police servers leaving the security and going, somewhere where someone would potentially have access to. I mean, the police department is the most secure location. We're there 24/7. We have the key fobs, the security access.
Guns,
If
you
you
know, you
move
have all
them
that.
elsewhere, now it's in a, not necessarily a secure environment. The backups are going to be done, he's working towards a cloud base, and they are done off-site, the backups. So, we do have those protections in place.
The other, sorry to interrupt.
And there's one more question. I thought we talked last year or the year before when we had the flood up here, and you guys got wet, that we were gonna try and cover this. So if anything leaked down, this wasn't gonna get rained on?
So part of the, looking at this project was looking at potential water. We did not receive funding to do that, and, what we did talk about is the sprinklers, we can actually move them outside of this room and then,
Right.
put the procedure, the proper equipment in place to protect it. I've talked with the fire chief on it, and one of our, when the contractors came in, we've got a plan in place that allows for us to move the sprinklers out of this room so that they will not be accessible to the service.
But what about a leak like we had here that rained down to you guys? Can we,
We're talking
can we
with
put
those
like an umbrella?
Umbrellas, thousands of dollars, that would escalate this project. We actually talked about those on this project, and as we talked about it, from talking to contractors, felt it would be, to get the sprinklers out of there, be more, cost effective. I mean, the water coming down there, it has happened that, that one time about 18, 17 years ago, but, my biggest concern is a sprinkler head going,
Right.
and ruining the service,
Okay.
and taking those protections in place.
That's more likely, right, than the floods, right.
Yeah, and realistically too, I mean, all of our servers are rack mounted, so they are off the floor. So there would have to be, basically most of the police department would be about 5 feet underwater.
Well, we're talking about coming from the top, though,
Yeah.
just,
Where we've been flooding from the top is more towards the
Right.
other end of our station.
Right.
And it's actually along the side walls.
We haven't been flooding in this area.
Okay.
We've been flooding.
what do you have another suppression system with the server room? Do you guys put like a CO2 or something, or?
So Scott's had discussions with the fire chief on it.
Smoke detector and fire extinguisher is what he is comfortable with and would
Okay.
sign off on, but removing the sprinkler heads out of
Yeah,
that
right, right.
immediate area. And, on page two, you can see the top diagram is actually looking at, if you're looking at both rooms head-on, because they abut one another, or they join one another.
Yeah.
So the wall in the middle, as you can see below, we would take out, basically 2/3 of that wall, opening it up, and then we would create a wall to make a hall. So if you go back to this page here, the hallway wall would then just divide the room here. So you'd actually gain that extra space where the desk and the two servers on the left-hand side are located now.
This project is really more of a town-based project, because we're housing more and more information from the different towns, departments. For instance, we've recently moved the DPW server over to the town's backup virtual servers, eliminating the need in the future to, when we have to do a server upgrade, upgrading that server over at DPW. We've done the same thing for the COA. They used to have a local server. We've eliminated that server and moved it over to the town.
We've also upgraded fiber, right, between all
Yes,
these buildings?
that's
That
one
was
of the
last
reasons
year,
why
wasn't
we're
it?
able to do that, because we have direct fiber links between all of them. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, for, your standard clerk is not gonna notice whether it's housed at the town hall or housed down on Willow Street.
Right.
Do you already have a projected cost on this, Scott?
So Sergeant Jenkins, talked with the different contractors, vendors. You wanna just kind of give a summary of what you did on this project? You can go right, take the. Yes, we have a cost of 24.5 is what we've come up with here, but Mike, if you wanna just fill everyone in what you did, to get to this, cost.
What we did is we brought in for different areas of for the work, obviously for the electrical, we brought in some electrical contractors, just for the scope of work. I can go over the scope of work in depth if you want, or,
Just if you wanna summarize it for them.
just to break it down, the electrical estimate was $5,300. The sprinkler system estimate, like we said, that would, we spoke with the fire chief, we spoke with sprinkler company, and that would be very minimal to move some things around. It'd be about $1,000. The overall construction, that's to remove a wall, to bring that wall out, like we said, to create the hallway.
Yeah.
It's about $1,800. The big thing was the server room security. Through our PD, we have fobs that track every door you go through, pretty much. We'd be putting a fob outside there, so to rerun that and to connect it to the current system that we have for the door read and security system would be about $5,000. And that includes to bring in a locksmith, because the door is based on the fob, so it's in the server room door that that they recommend, it's a steel door which is vented and it's connected to the fob system, so. Also, we're looking to do a cellular backup for the server room. And a perfect scenario is this morning, the town hall and the PD, we lost our internet. Right now, what we have is, our internet is through Comcast. So if we lose that, we really don't have a backup. We've been looking at some options, and to get cellular backup, which would, carry us over, in an event we lost the internet, would be about $3,500. And that would be, a lot of, the labor would be, between the IT director and myself, we could handle a lot of that. That includes antennas, so what would happen is if we lost the internet, we'd have cellular backup until we got the internet.
$3,500 one-time cost, just to set it up?
It's pretty much,
Yeah, so basically, it would be, sorry to interrupt. So basically, it would be a $3,500 one-time cost of basically setting up. Then from moving forward, it would basically be the cost of a cell phone. It would be a $40 recurring charge.
we'd get that, it just runs off the Verizon for GLTE or whatever network.
We have that at our
Yeah.
bank, same thing.
Actually, the mobile command vehicle, we have a cradle point within that, which is backed up by Verizon and AT&T. Same thing, if you lose one, you get the other. But this is to support the town hall and the PD internet connection.
That's good, that's great.
The HVAC estimate, and that's already, they're bringing a ductless HVAC to keep it climate controlled, which, when doing the research on the server room, the big thing is obviously the security. And the second thing is the climate controlled.
Right.
And like the chief said, we had to literally take the doors off. 80 degrees is being nice. It was getting, with the doors on there, upwards of 90 to 100 degrees. And for one, that affects the 911 server, which even the 911, the state says, we can't have this door on there. So,
Right.
when the PD was built, no one was thinking of server rooms, so,
So what do you think, a mini split?
it's pretty much,
A mini split, like AC heat, all
AC
one?
split,
Yeah.
you said.
yeah, exactly. I
They'll
think,
never use the
Right.
exactly. It's a 18,000 BTU ductless split system with a variable compressor.
What'd they give you for a number on that? I'm just curious.
79.
About 7,900 on the high end, so.
And again, one of the challenges, that Mike, if I can thank you, Mike.
Prevailing wage is all this
I
is?
was gonna say, one of the challenges, we definitely have to, deal with, it's different than the private sector, so it definitely increase our costs. We did increase, I put a 10% on the total number just to make sure because of, something else, curveballs getting thrown at us. And again, this is a project that, we talked about the cellular backup last March, and we had those two storms, we lost the internet. The code red system, when we alert the community that we're having emergencies, web-based, our scheduling is web-based. We've been working to be a 21st century police department, since I took over from day one. We're eliminating paper. The problem is now we're so, reliant on our web-based programs that's, not having a plan in place. Again, this morning, we do lose things, and for us to lose, power, for upstairs, it's not as big of an impact, but when someone's trying to call the station, or we're trying to, do a report, in the middle of a report, we lose it. Those are challenges that, we really have to tighten up the gaps. And that's, I definitely saw that last year in March, and that was why I wanted to make sure we had something in this project for that backup redundancy piece.
Even phones now are voice over, right?
Well, we don't yet, but that's coming up,
That's a
Project 3.
project, right?
Project 3. Any questions on the server room?
Did you get the total cost?
Yeah, 24.5,
Yeah.
so $25,000.
Okay.
So project number 3, and we just hit on it. So we still have phones in the police station that have been there since, before I came here in 1995, probably around 1995, 96. We got them around then. Right now, I cannot change, it still says John Cowan on my phone. We can't change anything on the phones. It's a system that you still have to dial in and hit buttons. It's got no web interface at all, piece to it at all. Right now, the challenge for us is that, with technology, we can't forward calls. When Sergeant Jenkins moved his office, his voicemail was attached to a specific phone that, it's still up in a different office. Right now, we regularly get calls from the public saying, I tried to leave a voicemail for the chief, the deputy chief, sergeant so-and-so, but it says your voice box is full. It's such an archaic system that, we continually have to send out email reminders to the officers. Don't save any messages, because it fills up that quick. 2 years ago, the town did go VoIP here, and there were some challenges. I think the system has been, been brought up to speed, and I know it was, a lot of it had to do with Sergeant Jenkins determining that the internet connection here to the station, I think I told you guys last year, was operating at a residential account, and now it's at a business account.
Right.
But with that, when we met with that vendor, Chief Harron and I asked him, how many public safety buildings had you transferred over? He says, well, none. They basically were putting a second phone at each workstation saying that here's your voice over internet phone, and then you can maintain your wire phone. Because again, we can't miss phone calls between police and fire. So with the voice over internet protocol that between Ryan and Sergeant Jenkins looked at, they got quotations so that would have that redundancy backup. There would probably be, and correct me if I'm wrong, we'd have a couple phones that were still wired.
Yes, so basically what we're looking at is we're looking at putting a voice over IP system in, but keeping the majority of our lines coming as POTS lines. So for instance, your first 3 lines coming into the building would be copper, but then potentially moving to your other lines as fiber backup. So worst case, if you did lose internet, you would still have those existing lines, those hardwired lines coming to the building, and the system would still be functional.
And this is project number 3. It actually says phone system upgrade. It's a total cost of $21,000. I know Sergeant Jenkins had spoken to 3 different vendors, am I correct?
Correct.
And then, right now, we've got a quotation that we've, included with all of our estimated phones that we would be looking to install under the system, with the services that we would need to, maintain a 24/7 service. It's 25 phones, Cat 3 to Cat 5 converters, and, with that, we came up with this cost of $21,000. Questions? I included the estimate, one of the estimates there for you in that package. And then the last project, and I spoke to George about it. For those that remember, we redid the camera systems under a town meeting approved article 4 or 5 years ago before I took over as chief. It did bring up to speed all the cameras in the police station, well, most of the cameras in the police station, most cameras in the town hall. We had some old outdated cameras, and we still have some old outdated cameras. Ryan has been doing something through a state grant that I was able to secure for us through the Executive Office of Public Safety. But what we found is that we have some gaps in the perimeter of the town hall building. We maintain the workstation that records everything, that views it. In an emergency, we can pull up each of the schools and town hall. There's some spots out front. There's no cameras out in front of town hall with the outside view, and on the back side, we've got a blind spot. Ryan had put together a project that it's only it's under the $10,000 limit. And I talked to George.
It's 20,000 now.
Yeah. What's that?
Capital is 20,000?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And and I kept it in there only because it might be something to consider to potentially put into our town hall server, project. And again, I wanted to parse it out because at the end of the day, as I said to Ryan, the server room project is a key thing. If,
Right.
If there wasn't funding to do the cameras, then we could look at another, or put it off for another time period. So I didn't, thought it made sense to keep it in. I mean, Ryan, I don't know if you want to just talk about it. I know you did the work on that one.
Yeah, so no problem. So I met with our vendor for access cameras. That's the cameras that we've been moving towards recently, which we did part of the grant project. We did a site assessment and we looked at our gaps. We recommended 3 cameras for exterior. Basically, right now is our blind spots include the very front of the parking lot. We don't have anything picking up the front parking lot. The main entrance, we don't have one camera that basically catches people coming into the main entrance, and the baseball side of the building. We don't have any cameras catching that path. So these cameras would I shouldn't say these 3 cameras, because some of the cameras we're actually looking at, even though they're 1 licenses, most of them have 3 to 4 lenses that are attached to them. They're actually kind of neat if you look at them. We actually just put a brand new one downstairs as part of the grant project that actually we are using 1 camera to catch the entire front parking lot of the building. You can actually, if you look at it, it's like a panoramic view.
Like a wide angle.
Yeah, nice wide angle. It's actually 4 lenses that are actually stitched together.
Wow.
So if they're like a little off, you can actually see the person like drop down. It's actually kind of neat, and they're all 4K too, which is nice. So you have like nice zoom in functionality. So we were looking at three cameras, I'm sorry, to catch basically all of our remaining blind spots in the exterior of the building.
And the only thing I'd follow up is, we're looking at every source of funding, not coming to capital, so we did have that opportunity, and we got $20,000, $19,800 from Executive Office of Public Safety. It was to improve law enforcement, police department, security, and school security. So what we were able to do is, I actually partnered up with the school and was able to get them a brand-new server for their middle school, and they were able to put in, how many cameras at the middle school? Was it 8?
So I think it was 8 cameras, licenses for all their existing cameras in the new server.
And then we additionally were able to enhance our station cameras. We now have cameras, and if you recall, I enhanced all of our evidence procedures downstairs. So we added another camera to one of the evidence rooms, so we have 100% coverage. And one of our cell cameras where we put the prison, we keep people in there when they're arrested, we enhanced that as well. So we got 3 cameras downstairs.
Oh, sorry. Actually, 4 new cameras.
4 new cameras, that's right, and then, one out in the back parking lot, because we had no coverage where, we've talked about without that station, garage, the ability to secure a car, we now at least have a camera, but, the goal was obviously to have, coverage on that as well. So those are our projects.
Okay.
Be more than happy, any questions, concerns?
So Ryan, it sounds like you've done a town-wide assessment of all the technology needs.
Yeah, so, yes, I've gone through all of our servers. I've seen where we're lacking, where we actually, are ahead of the game. I was very happy to see that we actually had fiber in place already. That's a big project, and I know that's a huge expense to towns trying to look at it. I recently was part of a project for, in my previous position as the IT manager for the Dayton Rehoboth School District. We were looking to do a fiber project linking all 5 of our buildings across 2 towns. So I know the undertaking that it is. There are needs. But that's IT. Something that you buy today, 6 months from now is obsolete. That's just the game, unfortunately. So, there's definitely growing needs that we're going to have in the town as we go forward in time. But, projects like the server room, consolidating down all of our devices into one location, freeing up, other areas in DPW, like for instance, we don't have to have that server there anymore. We don't need to have an entire server rack there anymore. Right. Potentially looking at, maybe down the line doing like a town-wide wireless system that we can centrally manage, as opposed to having, one system here and another system there, and not having a firewall in place in this one location, so it's not as secure as say our town office is. These are things that we need to look forward to going forward.
Right. But we're limited funds, that's the problem with the town.
That's the
so
thing.
We have to really.
And you have to be smart about it. Consolidating down, for example, right now, we have ISP Comcast connections at basically all of our locations. If we can consolidate it down and use the existing fiber that we have, basically get a larger pipe at one location, then share it out, you're going to see that cost savings.
Right.
And if you were to ask me my priorities, it would certainly be the cruiser, server room, VoIP system, and then the exterior cameras. If you were to say to me, what's your ranking or order of priority?
We definitely want to know that, yeah.
Yeah, which is how I presented them in that regard.
Yeah, the phone system is it's a proactive/reactive system, because we do have some issues with our phone system, but moving forward, we can't get parts for this system anymore. There's no one in the area that will service it anymore. It's just so archaic that, say we needed a new board, we'd probably have to go on eBay to look to see if we can find a used one.
Right. Okay. Do we have any wireless in town hall?
So yeah, we are actually working a ruckus system. It's very limited. We have 2 access points. So we do have some blind spots. For example, the other day I was trying to do something in Scott's
My
office, and I had to keep going out into the other side of the building in order to do it.
Okay.
That's something I've been looking at doing. I've done some heat assessments with the company, some just really early stage to see what our costs would be for a wireless project, and to see how viable it is. There's nothing stopping us from doing it as a whole, or picking out the department that need it the most, and move forward. That's 5-6 years from now we have full coverage.
We'd be interested in getting that for the committee members. If we could jump on that,
Yeah, absolutely.
because we're using our own machines, our own laptops and stuff, and we want to set up Google Drive as well, and have all our projects there, so you guys can just dump them right on there. So we could,
Get rid
pull
of
up.
paper.
Yeah, we'd like to get rid of all this.
about getting
Every
rid of
year we
paper.
have a stack this thick.
I am a
So-
huge proponent of
Yeah, so we'll have
Google
to talk
Apps.
to you offline.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
We'll get that straightened out. So.
Yeah, I'll just say, having him has definitely been a godsend, you
Yeah.
know, we've got a professional IT director, and it's, you know, like, we meet every Wednesday morning, we sit down and just, even for 10 minutes, just, you know, Sergeant Jenkins, Deputy Chief, and I, the four of us sit down, you know, like I said, we went down this morning, but again, he's on top of things. You know, he's working with Hub Tech that we still have a contract with, and he's dealing with that. Maybe, you know, seeing some phasing out and some
Right.
cost savings potentially, you know, coming back to the town, you know, by having him here, there's no
Nice.
question.
That's great. It's great having you on board.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for everyone's
You
time.
like that, huh?
Yeah, now Sergeant Jenkins, it doesn't have to be the de facto IT director, which is what he's been for the last 15
After being a
years.
police officer again.
Well, thank you for your time, and
Thanks,
like I
Scott.
said, if there are follow-up questions, reach right out to me. I need to come back, I will. If I need to just answer something, whatever you need.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Ryan, do you want to stick around and talk about your projects while we're here? I saw you had a couple large
Yeah,
ones.
sir. I don't have that.
Thanks, guys.
I apologize. I didn't realize I was speaking about it tonight. So I don't have the documentation in front of me, but I know it. I mean, I've been through these projects
Okay,
back
good
and
luck.
forth. Thanks.
Well, I figure you probably know them by heart, but if you,
Yeah.
you know, I just put you on the spot. If you don't,
No,
if you're
no,
not
absolutely.
comfortable,
No, I can talk
We have
about
a little bit of time
it.
before.
No, absolutely.
You guys okay with that? Talk to IT real quick?
Yeah. So there's two projects that we're looking to do. The first one I'll touch base on is the server infrastructure upgrade. In a nutshell, and
What part's this? This for police?
no, this is actually
This is-
this is townwide.
There's a couple in here. There's two big projects.
Yeah.
There's one in here about the fire, doing something with his server.
Is that my project or is that?
That's Tim's, I think.
Yeah, I think that might be Tim's project.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a radio system upgrade for 65,000.
Yes.
Is that anything to do with?
Not really. I mean, Tim was always more than, if he needs any consulting on anything on the IT side of it, he hasn't reached out to me on it, so I assume it's probably a similar system to what he has now. I know speaking, because I'm also the IT director for the town of Hanson too, so one of the things we've been looking at for the police department over there is we're looking to they are actually in the process of putting a new radio system in with a fiber backbone on it, just, in case, it's,
Maybe you should talk to Chief Harron.
yeah. No,
I mean,
absolutely.
you know what I mean? That's a benefit
No,
of having you like with two towns. If one town's doing the same thing, hey, if Chief can leverage that knowledge, or you give him some suggestions.
yeah,
Especially if we can save some
absolutely.
money or make sure he's kind of doing the most efficient way.
Oh, absolutely.
Not
And
that
it-
he isn't, I'm
You know,
just- probably is.
that's part of my plan too. Is that's one of the benefits of working in two towns. Is not only do I get to bounce the ideas back and forth, but potentially if the two towns are looking to do the same thing, for instance. Hanson for the fire department and police department are potentially looking at new phone systems too. So when I speak to my vendors, you give me,
Hey,
I might be looking at 3 of these systems.
Right. Yeah, sharpen the pencil on that one.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
So like I said, the first project I'll touch base on is the server upgrade. We do have some dated servers. Most of our servers are running Windows Server 2008 version R2. That actually reaches end of life of January of next year. It's no longer going to be receiving security updates from Microsoft. So this project would move all of our servers to Server 2019, migrate everything over to the Microsoft's newest version, as well as give us new servers. We do have some dated servers at this point. We're actually running out of storage on them.
Really?
Yeah. Once a week, I usually get storage notifications. Then we go through the process of trying to clear up some space.
So what's on there? What are people keeping? Well, how much? What do you have for space? What's
So right now we have about 2 terabytes of space across all of our servers. Now that is a combination of individual data storage for people. That is all of our virtual servers. So things like we have multiple domain controllers. So in case we lose one, the town can still work. Our print servers, obviously, we shared printing, different things like that. We're a self-hosted Exchange server. So all of our emails and everything are backed up on the servers.
Okay. That's a lot of data right there.
Yeah, it's a ton of data. The other piece to it too is we host our own backups. Right now they're in the server directly next to the existing servers.
That's our backups right next to the.
Yeah, that's just because when the backups were originally put in place, we didn't have the fiber there.
Right.
So when you're talking about that much data moving across, potentially a broadband connection,
It just bogs
everyone would
down.
have complained because it would have been like a trickle for ISP.
Right.
So one of the things I am looking to do is potentially either move it or move to a cloud-based solution for backups, just because we really isn't good practice to have your backups directly next to the existing
agree.
server. You never know what's going to happen. So that project basically is migrating everything to newer servers and upgrading our servers to Server 2019. Right now, it's for FY20, 19 will be available and have enough time that I'd be comfortable with moving it to 19. It's still kind of new, so if we were doing it today, I'd probably recommend going to 16, just because it's a stable operating system, but at that point, 19 will be old enough that they'll have worked out all the bugs on it.
Okay.
The other project piece,
Let's talk about the price of this one first. 132,000, right? Is there any way to, do this a little bit in piecemeal, or if you, say we could give you 50,000 or 60, or is there any way, have you looked at, I know you, some of them are newer than others, and have you looked at kind of like if you had limited funds, you could replace the
So-
oldest ones first, or kind of,
it's not, really the issue we have is it's not that all of our servers are virtualized, so for all intents and purposes, everything's housed on one server.
Okay.
Basically, what it is, it's a one large box and shared resources across all the servers.
okay.
So, the majority of the cost, I mean, your server's probably, and forgive me if I'm incorrect because I don't have it in front of me. It's say $25,000 to $30,000 for the box. A lot of the cost is the licensing for it, because the way Microsoft does it now is core licensing based off the number of cores you have, based off the total number of virtual machines that you need to have, and the cost of migrating over to 2019, moving everything over. I've been a part of migrations before. It is a huge undertaking.
So that's, who did the hub tech or
Yeah,
something?
usually in 99 out of 100 times, you have a vendor specialized in migration services taking care of it.
Okay.
Obviously, I would oversee it, and there may be changes I want to make in the future to just kind of improve upon the environment that we have. But yes,
So it's really not an easy way to piecemeal it.
there really isn't, unfortunately. If you
This
do,
is
if,
downstairs, the
yes,
new
yeah,
kitchen, right?
yeah. The other piece of this too is would potentially moving, all of this existing service down to the police station.
Right.
So we would be freeing up some space in some of the other areas. If you're familiar with the treasurer's office, that's where we actually have our current ISP coming into our firewalls.
Okay.
It's kind of a mess. It's an open environment. It's just.
not
It's
good.
really not good. Part of this project would be, in addition to the police department, would be basically consolidating everything downstairs and cleaning things up in that area. Trying, putting things in a locked cabinet and cutting down the number of devices we have
So if you
there.
did all this, what would you have for storage for,
So we, again,
Just ballpark.
I mean, you're probably looking at about, I think it was 15 terabytes of storage. Yeah, I mean, something that'll handle us moving forward for a long period of time.
do you put any restrictions on, like email boxes and things, on how much storage they
So
can have?
currently, we don't. That's one of the things I'm looking at doing, especially with Active Directory, potentially looking at limiting the number of gigs a person can actually
Yeah,
save.
because
for
people
this.
get lazy, right? They just
That's the thing. And then
have emails.
one
from
of the
10
things
years
we've
ago,
actually
but-
suggested, myself and HubTech, is for the police department is people haven't been deleting anything in their downloads folder. That's one of the reasons why we've been cutting down on we have storage problems.
Okay.
So Sergeant Michael Jenkins actually sent out an email to the police, all the officers, saying, okay, go into your downloads. Anything older than this date,
Right.
please delete
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the server project. Any other questions about it? Part of that project also includes battery backups too. Basically, what they are is everything is on generator, but it's basically a battery in between. So in case there's like kind of a brownout or the generators fail to go on, they give us basically time to shut everything down safely. So the other project that we did is, again, we touched on this earlier. It was I did a cost assessment for a wireless project town-wide. That would hit all of our buildings. It's the system I'm most familiar with and most comfortable with. I recently did a wireless project for the Dayton Rehoboth School District. That was about $300,000. We had about 185 total access points across 5 buildings. This is a smaller project because it's small locations, but this would give us full coverage in all of our areas and all of our buildings, and also put everyone on the same system. Just for example, we at the Council on Aging, we are using a system that we pulled from the old high school.
Right.
The library system is a home router from 2002. They have 3 of them. They actually cost more on eBay, to get a replacement for than they originally sold for. I'm sure it's everyone, they're those purple and black Linksys boxes.
Right.
That basically, if you look a picture of a router online, that's what they're using right now. They actually had one die, and I was able to find one in my basement in a box that I just happened to save, because when it comes to IT, I'm a pack rat. I don't like throwing anything away.
Right.
So as you can see, as part of that project, I actually broke that one down by location for cost, realizing that, you know, this type of project, while it is a need in a lot of areas, some areas are needed more than others.
Right. That's something we could definitely piecemeal
Yeah,
and prioritize.
exactly.
Okay.
So the system what we're looking is putting in is an Aruba system. We would have one central controller housed at the town office. It would basically control all the wireless across the town. We could, and we wouldn't necessarily have one SSID or one broadcasting name. We can configure it any way we want. But the other piece that it would do for us is all of our traffic would be going through our firewalls. So we'd have logs of all of our traffic through. We'd also be able to put filters on them
Right,
too.
right.
You know, certain areas, if you just have your regular Xfinity connection, that's what they're using.
Right.
You don't have any logs of the traffic going through, and who knows what they can get to.
How
So-
is the high school?
So the high school is currently using, I believe, a Ruckus system that's not as old as ours, but it is a little dated. I've had conversations with their two IT people over there. It's something we could potentially look at, is combining systems. I would recommend, if we did that, because the number of access points that you're looking at is going from, you know, the total number that we need to, you know, 5 times as much across all the buildings. So we may be looking at more controllers, things like that, but it's definitely possible. I've already had early conversations with their ITs over there about potentially sharing, you know, if we were looking at like a backup system,
Right.
you know, rather than getting 2 backup systems for X number of dollars, and well, why don't we combine, do everything on one backup, and we can probably save like 30% off the price point.
Right. That makes sense.
You know, we have fiber running between all of our buildings, including the schools, so it, you know, it makes sense.
Yeah, take advantage of that, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions for Ryan?
I think there's one more in here, an Office 365 migration.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes, so that last piece is a project to move to cloud-based internet. We currently are a self-hosted exchange system. Basically, that means if we lose internet at town hall, the town email system goes down. This would basically move everything to cloud-based, so whether, you know, town hall is here, has internet connection, doesn't, you know, if we have a fire, everything is stored in the town hall safely. Everything is up to date. A lot of our departments rely on internet for notifications, for like weather notifications, you know, things like that. The other piece of this too is we would move to Microsoft 365, which is actually cloud-based Office as well. So we would no longer need to have to relicensing copies of Office every year.
Right.
Anytime we get a new system, it's basically a cost per user. The other piece of that is includes archiving forever.
Right.
So eliminating the licensing when you upgrade, what's an estimated cost savings?
So it really depends on the version of Office you get and the number of licensing you're getting at a time. Ballpark, if I were to go to one of our vendors right now and say, you know, I need a new computer with a copy of Office 2019, they'd probably be charging me about $200 to $225 for that copy of Office. And that wouldn't include email. That would just be, you know, your standard Office, Word, all the way across Access, Outlook, things like that. This project is the main piece to it is the migration over to it. After that, you do have a yearly recurring cost, and that number fluctuates based off the number of active users you have. It's roughly $45, I believe, per user per year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like a licensing fee, right?
Yeah, it's basically a license plate per user. So you know,
We're gonna pay either way.
that's the thing.
Okay.
What is the priority list? How is this gonna go?
So the priority list to me is the server upgrade. Like I said, the biggest pushing factor on this one is Windows 2008 reaches end of life January of next year. So that means the majority of our servers will no longer be receiving security updates. In my opinion, it's critical that we make a change one way or the other. We have to, whether it's we keep our existing servers, which I wouldn't recommend because we're going to run into storage issues, and migrate everything over to 19, or we go with the new servers, the additional storage that we need as a town, and migrate everything over to 19. Second piece is, I would say, Well, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because it's important to move to Office 365 and cloud-based because that'll give us the backup. The wireless is important, but I would say more specific areas as opposed to the project as a whole. You know, fire department now is relying on wireless for different things. The police department is relying on wireless for different things. You know, areas like the Council on Aging, while, you know, it is awesome to have, and it would be great, you know, to be able to give full wireless access across the building, I wouldn't say it's so much of a necessity. It is a necessity in more of the office areas, but, you know, in the general environment, it's more of a luxury than anything else. Same with library, like, you know, we do provide the public Wi-Fi access. You know, it is what it is. I mean, for lack of a
free.
better term. Yeah, it's.
So people aren't
yeah,
complaining, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's slow, it's archaic, and we're gonna have problems with it, but we can live without it for, you know, a number more years. DPW is moving more and more, cloud-based. They all have tablets now. You know, so I would say DPW is a priority.
Okay. All right, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure meeting everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Okay. Got two out of the way.
Yeah. We have any update from George about
No,
funds?
we're gonna meet on the 25th. So the 27th, me and Dan can't make it, so we're gonna move that meeting to Monday, the 25th. You guys okay with that?
Yeah,
Say that again?
KJ, 25th of February, are you available? It's a Monday night.
I believe so.
I'm hoping we can get George up here.
I'm already here with George for a 5:30 personnel board meeting,
Oh, good.
so
We can meet right after. What time does that go till? 6:30?
probably 6.
Okay. So 6:30 would be a good time to meet?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'll,
Selectmen meeting that night?
oh, there is.
Yeah, 'cause they just had it last night, right? Or, yeah, the 11th they had it.
Every 2 weeks. What time is that?
Maybe can we-
Is that- Oh, it is 6:30.
Can we get here at 6? You guys get here at 6?
I could be here at
Yeah, we can be here at
I
6.
can ask George if we, right after the personnel
Yeah,
board?
just talk for like, you only need him for 15 or 20 minutes.
Right.
Just to give us an update on the funding.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right, so we'll have to post that. Can you post that for me?
yeah. Yeah, I'll talk to him tomorrow.
And I'll give you who's on the agenda for the 25th. I forget who it is.
So Glenn,
John is, the
Oh, yeah, John.
DPW.
Right. And then I have the school on the 6th, actually. So I changed this around a little bit. I'll send out a new
Send a
one.
new one?
Yeah.
So the police is basically 100 grand for their 3, and the IT is 294.
That's a lot, yeah. But, you know, some years we don't have big ones. Even with the years we do, we just have to do a bond, you know? So, you know, what we do is we'll do like $1 million bond if we have enough. And then the payments come out of the capital stabilization fund. So it's, you know, the impact's a little bit less.
well, one good thing is we have somebody finally that, because it seems like a lot of what we're talking about, we've already just done, and
Yeah, he,
cameras, and it seems like every time we turn around, cameras.
right.
But then they're outdated, and
Yeah.
so it'd be nice to be like up to date,
Right.
and
But with technology, I mean,
I
every 5
understand
years
what's
it's out of date.
constantly changing, right? So
Yeah.
that's the thing is having somebody educated in it, so that we're not spinning our wheels,
Yeah,
because
he-
it seems like
Pretty
this
knowledgeable.
has been
Yeah.
coming across our desk
Yeah.
year after year.
I know. But it's just, you know, like Mike Jenkins had to find out, you know, that we had a residential account instead of a business account.
Right.
You know, he had to find, he's a police officer, but he's an IT guy. You know, then we found out about the fiber and all that stuff. I mean, it's nice to have Ryan here. It's kind of looking at the town-wide and, you know, give us some direction and be more efficient on the spending, but typical IT guy, I mean, he's like, this is what you need. What's the cost? Well, whatever, it's 132 grand. But, you know, he's not one to think about that side of it. He's just trying to do what's right to get the system up and running, you know, but it's a lot of money, you know?
The only thing it seems to me is that it doesn't seem like the school is coinciding with that.
Right.
And they should be, if there's already 2 IT people with
Well,
the
he's
school,
communicating with them, which is good.
it would be nice to have everybody on the
Same
same
page.
page.
Yeah. Right. At least they're communicating, which is
No,
good.
I hate to start.
Right. So, let's hope that keeps going, you know, so. What else?
That's it. That's all I got.
What do you got? Tim? Call it quiet?
Yeah, yeah. IT's a little over my head.
Okay. Well, it sounds funny, Dan, like the stuff they're talking about, we've experienced at the bank. We've had internet issues.
Every day,
We
yep.
needed
Cellular backup.
cellular backup, you know, to be up and running. Dan,
Well,
You know,
you
what's
know
the
what,
funds?
it's kind of funny, because, you know, we talk about not backing things up with paper, but the paper just sits there. And we have to back everything up with IT, and now it's a lot of money
Right.
to back it up in a cloud.
right, right.
You know, so it's, you know, it's a,
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk to Ryan, I'll try to meet with him, sometime and, you know, get some wireless passwords for us, and get a Google Drive for capital. You know, so we really need one place we can put everything, and if you bring a tablet in or a laptop, we should just connect right up, we'll have everything right there. It's not, you know, it's okay having paper if you want it, but, it's also nice to have the tablet,
Yeah.
you can just scroll
The,
through it.
the one thing I have to say is, seeing a lot of the requests, you know, we kind of put a definition of capital, and we're kind of going back to, they're not, a lot of them aren't quite capital projects.
Right. Well, these ones are.
Those ones
So
are.
far.
Yeah.
But the 8,800 isn't. I mean, that's below our threshold, you know? So, he wants to lump it in, but it's dangerous to put them together, because if one doesn't pass, he'll lose both of them, you know? Whereas 8,800 is small enough dollars that might just go on its own,
Free cash?
the free cash, you know? That's why we have to talk to George, see how much free cash, because George actually used that for these small ones. There'll be a lot under 20,000 that he can fund, but, you know, we'll get some for like 25 or 30. Free cash might cover a couple of those. And then get a few of these big ones will definitely be bonded together with, maybe, you know, I think John's coming in with a sweeper for big dollars. I mean, a lot of those kind of things we'll just consolidate and maybe do, you know, $1 million bond if we need to.
Well, it all comes down to what George comes in with,
Numbers.
the numbers.
Right, right.
So that'd be nice to have a little earlier
Yeah.
forecast of what we have to work with.
Well, you know, once we get through the meeting with the department heads and understanding the projects, and once we get the numbers, we can quickly figure out which ones we can afford and which ones we can put off to another year, so. All right,
Sounds good to me.
anything else?
That's it.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay. 7:40.